Greetings, cozy knights. Lower your swords and rest by the fire. Tonight, we journey through 180 obscure Elden Ring theories. If you're enjoying these tales, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next adventure. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're listening from tonight. But for now, let's get cozy and journey through 180 obscure Elden Ring theories together. Our first theory suggests that the Elden Ring itself was never meant to exist in physical form. According to this interpretation, the ring is actually a concept, a set of natural laws given shape by the greater will's desire to impose order on chaos. When the Elden Beast arrived as a golden star, it didn't bring the ring with it, but rather created it from the fundamental forces already present in the world. This would explain why the ring can be shattered and remade with different ideologies. It's not an object, but rather a framework, and whoever controls it controls the very rules by which reality operates. Building on this, our second theory proposes that Marika didn't shatter the Elden Ring out of grief or rebellion alone. She shattered it because she discovered that the ring itself was slowly consuming the world. Each great rune represents not just power, but a piece of the world's essence, crystallized and trapped. By shattering the ring, Marika freed these essences, even if it meant plunging the lands between into chaos. This act wasn't destruction but liberation, an attempt to return the world to a state before the greater will imposed its rigid order. The third theory examines the Elden Beast's true nature. Many assume it's simply the physical manifestation of the Elden Ring, but some fans believe it's actually the greater will's punishment, not its gift. When the greater will first made contact with the lands between, it sent the Elden Beast to observe and enforce its will. But the beast became corrupted by the very world it was meant to control, growing obsessed with maintaining order at any cost. The creature we fight isn't a faithful servant, but a zealous guardian that has long since exceeded its original purpose. Our fourth theory turns to the two fingers, those gnarled hands that guide chosen Empyreans. What if these aren't extensions of the greater will at all, but rather parasites that prey upon its influence? They claim to speak for an outer god, yet their guidance often leads to suffering and stagnation. Perhaps they're remnants of an even older cosmic entity, one that infiltrated the greater will system and now perpetuates itself by ensuring the cycle of death and rebirth continues indefinitely. The fifth theory suggests that grace, that golden light that guides the tarnished, is actually a form of control. Those who can see grace are marked, tracked by the greater will, and unable to truly deviate from the path it has set. The loss of grace that Godfrey and his warriors experienced wasn't a punishment, but a gift of free will. Only by losing grace could they become strong enough to challenge the system itself. This would explain why tarnished without grace often seem more capable of independent thought. Theory number 6 proposes that the lands between exist in a time loop, doomed to repeat the same cycle of rise and fall eternally. The ruins scattered everywhere aren't from one civilization, but countless iterations of the same story. Each cycle begins with order imposed by an outer god, flourishes briefly, then collapses when that order becomes oppressive. The presence of ancient technologies far beyond what current civilizations possess supports this idea, suggesting that previous iterations achieved great heights before falling. Our seventh theory examines the Erdtree itself. While it appears to be the source of life in the lands between, some believe it's actually parasitic. The tree's roots burrow deep into the earth, drawing sustenance from something far older, possibly the remains of the great tree that existed before the Erdtree replaced it. The golden leaves that fall from the Erd tree might be the life force it's stolen, distributed back to the world in a cycle that ensures nothing can exist without depending on it. Theory 8 delves into Queen Marika's origin. While we know she was Numen, some fans theorize she was originally one of many candidates the Greater Will considered for godhood. The other candidates were systematically eliminated or transformed into the mysterious figures we encounter, like the Glomide Queen. Marika succeeded not through divine favor, but through cunning and ruthlessness, eliminating her competition before claiming the Elden Ring for herself. The ninth theory suggests that Radagon was created by the Greater Will specifically to control Marika. When she began questioning the Golden Order, the Greater Will needed a counterbalance, something that shared her body but opposed her will. Radagon isn't Marika's other half by natural occurrence, but by cosmic intervention, a leash disguised as a partner. Their struggle for control of their shared form represents the fundamental conflict between free will and divine mandate. Our 10th theory proposes that the shattering wasn't the first time the Elden Ring was broken. Evidence throughout the lands between suggests previous ages, previous orders that rose and fell. Perhaps the ring has been shattered and remade many times, with each reconstruction imposing a new order until that too becomes unbearable. The demigods who fought over the great runes were simply the latest in an endless succession of wars over the same power. Theory 11 examines the relationship between the Elden Ring and the concept of death. When the rune of death was removed and sealed with Malekith, it fundamentally changed what death meant in the lands between. But some theorize this wasn't the first time death was altered. The existence of those who live in death and other undead suggests that death has been manipulated many times, each manipulation creating a new category of being that exists in the spaces between life and true oblivion. The 12th theory turns to the Golden Order fundamentalists and their golden magic. Unlike other forms of magic that draw from external sources, Golden Order incantations seem to alter the laws of reality directly. This suggests they're not really magic at all, but rather programming changes to the Elden Ring's framework. Those who master fundamentalism aren't casting spells, but rewriting the code of existence itself. Our 13th theory proposes that Hugh the blacksmith is far more significant than he appears. Bound by Marika to forge a god-slaying weapon, he might actually be one of the ancient smiths who originally created the weapons of the gods. His imprisonment isn't just punishment, but necessity. Marika knew she would eventually need a weapon capable of killing divine beings, so she ensured a master craftsman would be available when the time came, even if it meant keeping him in chains. Theory 14 suggests that the walking mausoleums that wander the lands between aren't tombs but prisons. Inside each rests the body of a demigod who died without becoming part of the Erd tree cycle. These demigods are trapped in a state between death and rebirth, unable to truly die because their souls were deemed too dangerous to allow into the afterlife. The bells they carry don't mourn their death, but warn others of what lies within. The 15th theory examines the spectral warriors that emerge from the mausoleums. These aren't random spirits, but the personal guards of the entombed demigods, cursed to serve even in death. Their presence suggests that whatever offense these demigods committed was severe enough to warrant eternal imprisonment, not just for them, but for everyone associated with them. Our 16th theory proposes that the Night of Black Knives was orchestrated by multiple parties, each with their own agenda. Rani wanted to escape her fate as an Empyrean. Marika wanted to free herself from the Greater Will's control. The Black Knife assassins had their own reasons. possibly related to their Numen heritage, and a desire for revenge against Marika for abandoning her people. What appeared to be a single conspiracy was actually multiple plans intersecting at the perfect moment. Theory 17 suggests that Godwyn's death created a new form of existence, neither truly dead nor alive. He became something unprecedented, a being that exists in death itself. This new state proved contagious, spreading through the roots of the Erd tree and infecting anyone who comes into contact with Deathblight. Godwyn didn't die so much as transform into a new category of being, one that the Golden Order has no means of addressing. The 18th theory examines Miquella's curse of eternal youth. While presented as a curse, some fans believe it was actually a blessing he chose for himself. By remaining eternally young, Miquella ensured he could never be corrupted by the ambitions that plagued his siblings. His childlike form represented purity of purpose, allowing him to pursue his goals without the ego and pride that comes with maturity. The curse was his protection against becoming like those he sought to heal. Our 19th theory proposes that the Halig tree was never meant to be a replacement for the Erd tree. Instead, Miquella was attempting to grow something fundamentally different, a tree that existed outside the Greater Will's influence entirely. Unlike the Erd tree, which parasitized the Great Tree before it, the Halig tree would draw its power from Miquella himself, creating a sanctuary powered by compassion rather than cosmic mandate. Theory 20 delves into Saint Trina's relationship with Miquella. While later revealed to be another aspect of Miquella, Saint Trina might represent something deeper than a simple alter ego. Perhaps Trina was the part of Miquella that doubted his own methods, the voice of conscience he eventually had to abandon to pursue his goals. When Miquella discarded Trina, he discarded his own hesitation, committing fully to a path that no longer questioned whether the ends justified the means. Our 21st theory examines Marika and Radagon's relationship through the lens of alchemical transformation. Their dual nature mirrors the Rebis, the perfected being in alchemical tradition that represents the union of opposites. But unlike traditional alchemy, where this union creates something greater, Marika and Radagon's merger created eternal conflict. Two wills inhabiting one body, forever struggling for dominance, unable to separate yet incapable of true unity. Theory 22 suggests that Marika deliberately engineered her own downfall. Every action she took, from exiling Godfrey to bearing children with Radagon, to shattering the Elden Ring, was calculated to create the conditions necessary for a Tarnished to eventually challenge the greater will itself. She couldn't rebel directly without being destroyed, so she built an elaborate system where someone else could do what she could not. The 23rd theory proposes that Radagon's red hair isn't simply an aesthetic choice, but indicates a connection to the fire giants. Perhaps before becoming Marika's other half, Radagon was something else, possibly even a champion of the fell god before being transformed by the greater will. His devotion to the Golden Order might stem from his original nature being suppressed, creating a fanatic who serves precisely because he fears what he once was. Our 24th theory examines the nature of their children. When Marika bore children with Godfrey, they were strong and healthy, aside from Morgoth and Mog's omen curses. But when she bore children with Radagon, her own other half, the results were disastrous. Malenia was born rotting, Miquella eternally young. This suggests that self-conception violates some fundamental law of the lands between, creating offspring that are simultaneously blessed with incredible power and cursed with terrible afflictions. Theory 25 suggests that Marika's removal of the Rune of Death wasn't about granting immortality, but about controlling the nature of existence itself. Without death, nothing could truly end, meaning everything that existed was subject to a will indefinitely. Souls couldn't escape to an afterlife beyond her reach. This made her not just a queen, but the absolute arbiter of all existence within her domain. The 26th theory proposes that Radagon's attempt to repair the Elden Ring wasn't opposition to Marika, but actually part of her plan. By repairing it incompletely, he ensured it remained broken enough to allow a Tarnished to challenge it, but stable enough to prevent complete collapse. Their apparent conflict was actually carefully choreographed cooperation, a performance for the greater will to observe while they worked toward the same goal through seemingly opposed actions. Our 27th theory examines Marika's relationship with Godfrey. Their partnership represented the first age of the Golden Order, when strength and conquest defined righteousness. But as Godfrey's enemies fell and his eyes lost their luster, Marika realized that peace under the Golden Order meant stagnation. She exiled him not out of cruelty, but necessity, preserving him and his warriors for a future when they would be needed to overturn the very order they helped establish. Theory 28 suggests that Marika and the Numen have a darker history than commonly known. The Numen came from a land outside the lands between, and Marika's rise to godhood might have involved abandoning or even sacrificing her people. The Black Knife assassins, also Numen women, might have worked with Rani not out of loyalty to her, but for revenge against Marika for ancient betrayals. The 29th theory proposes that Marika's imprisonment within the Erd Tree after the shattering wasn't just punishment, but containment. If she and Radagon truly exist as one being with two wills, imprisoning them prevents either from acting independently. The greater will couldn't simply destroy them without destroying the Elden Ring itself, so it settled for ensuring neither could interfere with whatever resolution would emerge from the chaos they'd created. Our 30th theory examines the golden thorns that bar entrance to the Erd Tree. These weren't created by the greater will, but by Radagon, as a desperate attempt to seal away Marika and prevent anyone from reaching the broken Elden Ring. The thorns represent his last act of devotion to the Golden Order, sacrificing himself and his other half to protect what remains of their world structure, even as it crumbles around them. Theory 31 delves into the mystery of Melina, who many believe is connected to Marika. What if Melina is actually the first attempt at creating Radagon, an early experiment in dividing Marika's essence that failed? Rather than creating an equal counterpart, this first division created a lesser being, one without a body of her own, condemned to wander and seek purpose. Marika's later creation of Radagon as her true other half left Melina as a cast-off, explaining her fragmentary existence and desperate need to burn the Erd Tree. The 32nd theory suggests that each of Marika's children represents a different aspect of her fragmented psyche. Godwyn embodied her hope for peace. Mog and Morgott represented the darkness she tried to suppress. Malenia and Miquella were her attempt to transcend the limitations imposed by the Golden Order. Through her children, Marika tried to experience and express parts of herself that her role as God Queen prevented her from manifesting directly. Our 33rd theory proposes that the transformation between Marika and Radagon requires tremendous energy, which is why we see them change only once during our encounter. In their shared body, one personality typically remains dormant while the other takes control. The effort required to switch might explain why Radagon appears after Marika is struck down. She released control, allowing him to emerge and defend what she had already decided must be destroyed. Theory 34 examines the nature of their consciousness sharing. While they occupy the same body, they might not always be aware of what the other does. Radagon might not fully remember his time as Marika, and vice versa. This would explain apparent contradictions in their behavior. They're not truly one being making contradictory choices, but two beings forced to share existence without complete knowledge of each other's actions. The 35th theory suggests that Marika's hammer, the weapon she used to shatter the Elden Ring, came from her homeland beyond the lands between. It's not crafted in the style of the Golden Order, but represents something from her past, perhaps her original identity before becoming a god. Using this hammer to destroy the ring was symbolically important, rejecting her divine nature and returning to her roots as a mortal Numen, who once knew true freedom. Our 36th theory proposes that Radagon's devotion to the Golden Order stems from being created specifically for that purpose. Unlike Marika, who was mortal before ascending to godhood and remembers life without divine mandate, Radagon has only ever existed as part of the Golden Order. His fanatical loyalty isn't blind faith, but existential necessity. Without the Order, he has no purpose, no identity, perhaps no existence at all. Theory 37 delves into the timeline of when Radagon became part of Marika. Some believe they were always one being, while others think they merged later. A third possibility exists. They were separate, merged, then separated again, only to merge once more. The timeline might not be linear at all. They could phase in and out of unity, sometimes existing as separate individuals, sometimes as one being, depending on circumstances we don't fully understand. The 38th theory suggests that the statue in Leyndell that reveals Radagon's true identity wasn't created by Marika or Radagon, but by Goldmask or another scholar who discovered their secret. The law of regression incantation strips away illusions to reveal fundamental truths. Someone created that statue knowing its secret would eventually be revealed, leaving a permanent record of the truth for those wise enough to look beyond appearances. Our 39th theory examines why Marika and Radagon had children together if they share the same body. Perhaps they could separate temporarily, existing as distinct beings for brief periods before being drawn back together. During these separations, they conceived Malenia and Miquella. The curses afflicting these children might result from the unnatural strain of temporarily separating a unified being, creating offspring from what is essentially a single divided entity. Theory 40 proposes that Marika and Radagon's duality represents the fundamental conflict within the Elden Ring itself. The ring contains multiple great runes, each embodying different principles that sometimes contradict. Marika and Radagon aren't just two people, but personifications of the ring's internal contradictions. Their struggle is the ring struggling with itself, order versus chaos, stability versus change, eternally unresolved. Our 41st theory turns to Godwyn the Golden, Marika's firstborn, and the first demigod to die. His death wasn't simply assassination but transformation. When the black knife pierced him with destined death, he didn't die completely. Instead, he became something new, the Prince of Death, a being who exists within death itself. His body lives while his soul died, creating an inversion of normal death where the physical persists while consciousness fades. Theory 42 suggests that Godwyn's corruption spreading through the lands between is actually his attempt to communicate. Unable to truly die or properly live, he reaches out through the only means available to him, the roots of the Erd tree. The death blight isn't simply rot or corruption, but Godwyn's essence, seeking connection with any consciousness it can find, trying to tell someone, anyone, what happened to him, and begging for true death. The 43rd theory proposes that Godwyn was chosen for assassination specifically because he was Marika's favorite. Ranni needed a demigod death to anchor her own, but she could have targeted any of them. Choosing Godwyn ensured Marika would be devastated, potentially driving her to shatter the Elden Ring as Ranni desired. Godwyn's death wasn't random, but carefully calculated to produce maximum trauma. Our 44th theory examines the nature of the half-wheel symbol associated with Godwyn's corpse. While it resembles Marika's rune, it's inverted and incomplete. This might represent his partial death, existing in a state where life and death overlap. The symbol marks locations where his presence is strongest, areas where the boundary between living and dead has worn thin enough for him to manifest his influence. Theory 45 suggests that Godwyn actually survives in some form deep within his corrupted body. His consciousness, unable to die properly, has been trapped within his own rotting flesh for years. The tentacles and eyes that sprout from his corpse might be attempts to interact with the world, crude sensory organs grown from desperation. Every time we encounter Deathblight, we're touching Godwyn's extended nervous system, feeling what he feels. The 46th theory proposes that Fear's quest to lie with Godwyn and bear the mending rune of the Death Prince isn't romantic, but practical. By joining with Godwyn's living corpse, she becomes a vessel for his essence, allowing him to influence the world through her. The rune she bears contains both her own life force and whatever remains of Godwyn's consciousness, making it a true union of life and death. Our 47th theory examines those who live in death, the undead spawned by Godwyn's condition. They aren't mindless revenants, but something more tragic. Each one retains fragments of their original personality and memories, but is slowly being overwritten by Godwyn's nature. They fight us not out of aggression, but confusion, lashing out at the living because they no longer understand what being alive means. Theory 48 suggests that Miquella's attempts to bring Godwyn back through the eclipse weren't about resurrection, but about giving him true death. Miquella understood that his brother's state was a fate worse than oblivion. The eclipse wouldn't restore Godwyn's life, but would complete his death, allowing his soul to finally rest. The ritual failed not because it couldn't restore life, but because the forces keeping Godwyn trapped were too strong. The 49th theory proposes that Godwyn's death created a precedent that doomed the lands between. Before him, no demigod had ever truly died. His death proved it was possible, which emboldened all the other demigods to war against each other without fear. The shattering war was so brutal precisely because Godwyn's death had shown them mortality was real, making them desperate to claim power before someone else claimed their life. Our 50th theory examines the possibility that Godwyn isn't the only demigod trapped between life and death. The mausoleums contain others who suffered similar fates, demigods who died but couldn't properly pass on. Each mausoleum wanders endlessly because its occupant is trapped in an endless loop of dying without ever truly reaching death's embrace. They're prisons not for dangerous dead, but for the dangerously undead. Theory 51 delves into Miquella the Kind, perhaps the most enigmatic of Marika's children. His curse of eternal youth appears to be a burden, but what if he chose it deliberately? By remaining forever young, forever innocent in appearance, Miquella ensured that others would underestimate him. Behind his childlike exterior existed a mind of terrifying intelligence and ruthless pragmatism. The 52nd theory suggests that Miquella's greatest power wasn't his magical ability, but his capacity to inspire loyalty. He could compel affection in ways that transcended normal charisma, essentially mind-controlling those around him. But this power might not have been intentional. Perhaps people's devotion to him was a side effect of his curse, reality itself warping around him to protect the eternal child, making others love and shield him. Our 53rd theory proposes that the Halig tree was Miquella's attempt to create a new Erd tree free from the greater will's influence. He watered it with his own blood, literally growing a divine tree from his essence, rather than cosmic mandate. If successful, the Halig tree would have proved that godhood didn't require outer gods, that mortals could create their own divinity without submitting to cosmic powers. Theory 54 examines Miquella's relationship with Malenia. Their bond as twins was deeper than normal sibling connection. They were born from Marika and Radagon's union with themselves, making them something unprecedented. Some believe they were meant to be a single being that split in the womb, explaining why their curses complement each other. Miquella forever young, unable to grow, while Malenia rots away, unable to stop changing. The 55th theory suggests that Miquella's needles, which can hold the influence of outer gods, were his greatest invention. With these needles, he could potentially free the entire world from cosmic manipulation. But creating them required understanding how outer gods influence reality, which means Miquella had to study their methods intimately, perhaps too intimately. His quest to free the world from gods might have required him to become uncomfortably similar to them. Our 56th theory proposes that Mo's kidnapping of Miquella wasn't as straightforward as it seems. While Mog believed he was claiming Miquella for the formless mother, Miquella may have allowed himself to be taken. The cocoon in Mogwyn Palace provided perfect isolation for his transformation. Sometimes the best way to achieve your goals is to let others think they've captured you while you're exactly where you want to be. Theory 57 delves into the shadow of the Erdtree expansion's revelation that Miquella manipulated Mog. This manipulation extends back years, possibly to childhood. Miquella identified Mog's desire for acceptance and love, then weaponized it. Every interaction between them was calculated. Mog never had free will in their relationship. He was Miquella's puppet, moved into position for whatever grand design the Kind One had conceived. The 58th theory examines Miquella's plan to ascend to godhood. Unlike his mother, who received godhood from the greater will, Miquella intended to seize it through his own power. The Land of Shadow provided the ritual site, and Radan would serve as his consort, a warrior strong enough to enforce his new order. Miquella's vision of an age of compassion wasn't about kindness, but about forcing everyone to love each other, whether they wanted to or not. Our 59th theory suggests that Centrina, Miquella's other self, represents the part of him that actually cared about others. As Miquella pursued godhood, he recognized that compassion would be a weakness, so he quite literally cut away his capacity for genuine love, discarding Trina into the depths. The sleeping saint now opposes what Miquella has become, recognizing that he's become the very thing he claimed to fight against. Theory 60 proposes that Miquella's failure was inevitable precisely because of his curse. He remained eternally young, not just in body, but in understanding. Despite his genius, he never developed the wisdom that comes with age. His plans were brilliant but immature, born from a child's view of how the world should work, rather than how it actually does. He could never truly mature enough to see the flaws in his perfect vision. Our 61st theory turns to Malenia, Blade of Miquella, whose devotion to her brother defined her existence. But what if this devotion wasn't entirely her own choice? Miquella's ability to compel affection might work most powerfully on those closest to him. Malenia's absolute loyalty could be the result of a lifetime of unconscious manipulation, making her not his devoted sister, but his most thoroughly controlled puppet. Theory 62 examines the scarlet rot that afflicts Malenia. While presented as a curse from the outer god of rot, some believe it's actually a failed attempt at apotheosis. Malenia tried to ascend to godhood on her own, but without proper guidance or preparation, the transformation went wrong. The rot consuming her flesh is divine essence she can't fully contain, slowly transforming her into something beyond mortal but not quite divine. The 63rd theory suggests that Malenia's battle with Radahn had nothing to do with the Shattering War. Miquella sent her specifically to kill Radahn, likely as part of his plan to later use the general as his consort. But Radahn was too strong, forcing Malenia to unleash the scarlet rot in desperation. She bloomed not to win but to escape, leaving Radahn alive but mindless, perhaps exactly as Miquella planned. Our 64th theory proposes that Malenia's rot isn't actually trying to kill her, but to transform her. Each bloom brings her closer to becoming the goddess of rot fully. She's resisted this transformation through sheer will and the needles Miquella created. But eventually, the rot will win. When it does, she won't die, but instead ascend to become the avatar of an outer god, losing everything that made her human in the process. Theory 65 examines the clean rot knights who serve Malenia. Their devotion seems admirable until you realize they're all slowly rotting despite their armor and faith. They know they're dying, that serving Malenia means accepting inevitable corruption, yet they remain loyal. This suggests either incredible nobility, or that Miquella's influence extends to Malenia's followers, compelling them to love her even as she kills them. The 66th theory suggests that Millicent and her sisters aren't offspring of Malenia, but fragments of her. When Malenia bloomed in Caelid, she didn't just spread rot, but split off pieces of her essence. These pieces gained consciousness and form, becoming independent beings who carry her nature. They're not daughters, but alternative versions of who Malenia could have been if her circumstances were different. Our 67th theory proposes that Malenia's blindness isn't just physical, but metaphorical. She's blind to Miquella's true nature, unable or unwilling to see the manipulation and ruthlessness beneath his kind exterior. Her devotion makes her his perfect weapon, precisely because she never questions whether his orders are just. She is his blade because she's been honed to cut, without considering what she's cutting. Theory 68 examines the rot incantations and weapons scattered throughout the lands between. If the scarlet rot is the influence of an outer god, then every person who wields these items is opening themselves to that influence. Using rot magic isn't just employing a tool, but inviting an entity to work through you. The more you use it, the more you become a vessel for the god of rot's will. The 69th theory suggests that the outer god of rot and the formless mother might actually be the same entity, viewed from different angles. Both demand sacrifice and spread transformation through bodily corruption. Perhaps outer gods don't have singular fixed forms, but rather manifest differently depending on how mortals perceive and worship them. Our 70th theory proposes that Malenia's third bloom, which we witness if we defeat her, actually succeeds in killing her true self. The goddess who emerges in the second phase isn't really Malenia anymore, but the outer god wearing her body like a suit. We're not fighting a desperate warrior defending her brother, but a deity testing whether we're worthy opponents. Theory 71 turns to Mog, Lord of Blood, whose devotion to the formless mother shaped his entire existence. But what if the formless mother doesn't actually exist? Mog's blood magic and rituals might be drawing power from something else entirely, possibly the collective unconscious trauma of all omens. He calls it a deity because he needs to believe his power comes from something greater than his own tortured psyche. The 72nd theory examines Mog's dynasty beneath the earth. He's building something down there, an entire civilization founded on blood. But foundations built on suffering rarely last. Morg might not be creating a dynasty, but rather accelerating its doom. Every recruit he gains through blood ritual is another person whose mind has been violated, who will eventually turn on their tormentor once they break free from his influence. Our 73rd theory suggests that Mog's obsession with Miquella stems from recognizing what he could have been. Both are cursed children of Marika, but while Miquella was loved despite his curse, Mog was hidden away as an omen. Mog saw in Miquella a version of himself, who received compassion instead of contempt. His desire to make Miquella his consort was really a desire to merge with the life he should have had. Theory 74 proposes that Morgoth, the Grace, given, was actually the most tragic figure in the Shattering War. Despite being born an omen and despised by the Golden Order he defended, he remained loyal, fighting to preserve a system that viewed him as abomination. His commitment to duty wasn't noble but pathological, the behavior of someone so beaten down they can only find value by serving those who hate them. The 75th theory examines why Morgoth used the name Margit the Fell Omen when traveling. By adopting this alter ego, he could fulfill his duty without claiming credit, ensuring the Golden Order received glory while he remained anonymous. But this self-denial reveals how deeply he'd internalized his oppression. He couldn't even take pride in his accomplishments because he believed an omen had no right to glory. Our 76th theory suggests that Mog and Morgoth's omen curse wasn't random, but specifically engineered by the Crucible, the primordial form of the Ur Tree. The Crucible represented chaos and mixture, all life blended together. Omens are living embodiments of that ancient chaos, proof that the Golden Order's rigid categories are artificial constructs imposed on a reality that naturally resists such simple definitions. Theory 77 proposes that the Omen Killers were created not just to eliminate omens, but to suppress evidence of the Golden Order's failure. Each omen represents the Order's inability to truly control life, so they must be destroyed before others realize that the system is flawed. The Omen Killers aren't enforcers but cover-up artists, hiding the truth about the Order's limitations. The 78th theory examines Rykard, who fed himself to a serpent seeking immortality. But what if the serpent had always been there? Metaphorically speaking, Rykard was described as ruthless and cruel before his transformation. The serpent didn't corrupt him, but rather gave physical form to what he'd always been. He didn't become a monster. He simply stopped pretending to be anything else. Our 79th theory suggests that the god-devouring serpent represents an ancient force that predates even the Ur Tree. It consumed gods long before Rykard found it, growing stronger with each divine meal. By feeding himself to this entity, Rykard didn't control it, but rather added his consciousness to all the other devoured minds within it. He's not piloting the serpent, but trapped inside it with all its previous victims. Theory 80 proposes that Rykard's desire to devour gods wasn't nihilism, but a twisted form of mercy. He recognized that gods inevitably become tyrannical, so the kindest thing to do was eliminate them all. Every god devoured was one less cosmic horror inflicting its will on innocent mortals. From his perspective, becoming a monster that eats gods made him the hero protecting humanity from divine predation. Our 81st theory turns to Radan, the legendary general who held back the stars themselves. This feat seems impossible unless the stars aren't what they appear to be. In Elden Ring's cosmology, stars are manifestations of fate and outer gods. Radan wasn't holding back celestial bodies, but rather preventing destiny itself from progressing. He froze fate, keeping the world in a holding pattern where nothing could fundamentally change. Theory 82 examines why Radan did this. While it seems connected to protecting Celia from a falling star, the truth might be more personal. By halting the stars, Radan prevented Ranni from completing her quest. He knew what she planned, possibly through Miquella's influence, and used his immense strength to delay her rebellion against the greater will. His great act of strength was actually an act of cosmic interference. The 83rd theory suggests that Radan's madness from the Scarlet Rot wasn't entirely natural. Miquella needed Radan as his consort, but the general was too willful to control. The rot conveniently reduced him to a shell, strong but mindless, perfect for Miquella's purposes. Perhaps Miquella arranged for Malenia's bloom, knowing it would break Radan's mind while leaving his body intact. Our 84th theory proposes that Radan's festival isn't really about honorably ending his suffering. It's a trial by combat to find warriors strong enough to challenge the gods. Jeren organizes it, knowing that whoever defeats Radan has the strength to reshape the world. The festival is recruitment for an army capable of divine rebellion, with each participant proved worthy through bloodshed. Theory 85 examines Leonard, Radan's absurdly tiny horse. This isn't comic relief, but tragedy. Radan learned gravity magic not to become a better warrior, but to spare his beloved horse from his weight. Everything about his mastery over gravitational forces stems from loving an animal too much to hurt it. He could hold back the stars, but chose to use that power to be kind to a single small horse. The 86th theory suggests that after his defeat, Radan's soul was actually glad. Years of mindless suffering ended, and he could finally rest. But Miquella didn't allow that rest. He pulled Radan's soul back, forced it into Mog's corpse, and bound him to service as a consort. Radan's resurrection wasn't salvation, but damnation, denied the peace of death to serve someone else's ambition. Our 87th theory proposes that the various demigods' great runes have been slowly driving them insane. Each rune contains immense power, but also a fragment of the Elden Ring's consciousness, its desire to be whole again. The runes whisper to their bearers constantly, demanding reunification, pushing them to war against each other not out of ambition, but because the ring itself compels them toward its own restoration. Theory 88 examines Rennala, Queen of the Full Moon, whose broken state after Radagon's departure reveals the dangers of loving gods. Radagon didn't just leave her. He took part of her with him, his egg containing some essence she can never reclaim. She's addled not from simple grief, but from literal incompleteness, a piece of her soul permanently severed and carried away by a god who discarded her when he no longer needed her. The 89th theory suggests that the students of Raya Lucaria aren't actually studying magic, but archaeology. They excavate knowledge from previous ages, piecing together how magic worked before the Golden Order tried to categorize and control it. Their experiments aren't innovations, but rediscoveries, finding what ancient civilizations knew and modern scholars have forgotten. Our 90th theory proposes that glintstone sorcery draws power from crystallized starlight, but stars in Elden Ring are outer gods or fate itself. Every spell a sorcerer casts slightly opens them to influence from beyond. The more powerful the magic, the more the caster becomes a conduit for cosmic forces. Masters of Glintstone aren't just wielding power. They're being gradually hollowed out and filled with something vast and incomprehensible. Theory 91 delves into Rani the Witch, whose elaborate plan to escape her fate as an Empyrean shaped the Lands Between's history. She orchestrated Godwyn's death, discarded her own body, and manipulated events across decades. But despite her rebellion against the greater will, she might still be serving an outer god, the Dark Moon. She escaped one cosmic master only to pledge herself to another. The 92nd theory examines what Rani's Age of Stars actually means. While presented as freedom from divine interference, it might be worse than the Golden Order. Rani takes the Elden Ring away, removing all order from the Lands Between. Without the ring's influence, reality becomes mutable and uncertain. People might gain freedom but lose stability. Everything becomes possible, which means nothing is certain, and civilization cannot exist without some bedrock of reliable reality to build upon. Our 93rd theory suggests that Rani's most significant action was killing her own body. By doing this, she proved that Empyreans could escape their destiny. The Two Fingers chose her to potentially become a god, but she rejected that fate completely. Her escape might inspire other Empyreans to resist, showing that cosmic destinies aren't as inevitable as the outer gods want everyone to believe. Theory 94 proposes that Blade's tragedy was inevitable from his creation. He was made to serve Rani, but also to ensure she fulfilled her role as Empyrean. When she chose rebellion, his programming conflicted. His loyalty to her fought his design to serve the greater will. His descent into madness wasn't weakness, but the result of impossible directives tearing his mind apart. He couldn't betray Rani, but he also couldn't allow her rebellion. The only resolution was destruction. The 95th theory examines Iji's role in Rani's conspiracy. This wise troll helped her from the beginning, crafting armor and weapons, providing counsel. But trolls were enslaved by the Golden Order. Every moment Iji spent helping Rani was an act of rebellion, not just against the greater will, but against his people's oppressors. His death protecting her secrets was freedom, finally acting on his own terms rather than as a slave. Our 96th theory suggests that the Black Knife Assassin's involvement with Rani hints at a larger conspiracy among the Newmen. They're the same race as Marika, yet they helped kill her son. Perhaps there's a faction of Newmen who believe Marika betrayed their people by becoming a god of the Golden Order. Helping Rani undermine that order was revenge disguised as conspiracy. Theory 97 proposes that the Dark Moon that Rani serves might be connected to the Carian royal family's power over cosmic magic. The Carians studied moon and stars, drawing power from celestial forces. When Rani pledged herself to the Dark Moon, she might have been returning to an ancient pact her family made long ago, renewing a relationship with an outer god that predates the greater will's influence. The 98th theory examines what happens to the Lands Between after Rani leaves with the Elden Ring. With no order imposed from above, the various factions and peoples must create their own societies. This could lead to unprecedented freedom and innovation, or it could result in endless war, as different groups fight over who gets to define reality. Rani's gift of freedom might actually be a curse of uncertainty. Our 99th theory suggests that Rani's final dialogue about a 1,000-year voyage into the darkness isn't metaphorical. She and the Tarnished literally leave the world behind, traveling through space or dimensions with the Elden Ring. But where are they going? perhaps to find the greater will itself and confront it directly, taking the fight beyond the lands between to the source of cosmic manipulation. Theory 100 proposes that Rani's plan ultimately fails in ways she never anticipated. Removing the Golden Order's influence doesn't eliminate outer gods, but merely creates a power vacuum. The Formless Mother, the God of Rot, the Frenzied Flame, all these entities still exist and will move to fill the void Rani created. Her rebellion might trigger an age of even worse divine warfare as competing outer gods battle for control without the greater will's dominance keeping them in check. Our 101st theory turns to the outer god of Rot, an ancient force that predates the Erd Tree. This entity doesn't simply cause decay, but represents transformation through destruction. Everything it touches changes, breaking down into something new. The rot isn't death, but metamorphosis, taking complex forms and reducing them to base components that can become anything. It's not evil, but indifferent, treating all matter equally as resources for endless recombination. Theory 102 examines the lake of rot deep beneath the earth. This isn't just where rot accumulates, but where the outer god physically manifests in the world. The lake is alive, thinking, patient. It waits for someone or something to free it from its prison and allow it to spread across the surface world, transforming everything into endless variations on the same themes of growth and decay. The 103rd theory suggests that the kindred of rot, those corrupted beings serving the outer god, were once normal creatures and people. The rot offers them a bargain: surrender your current form and receive transformation into something that can survive the decay. They didn't fall to corruption but accepted evolution, trading their original nature for adaptation to a world drowning in rot. Our 104th theory proposes that the Formless Mother, the outer god of blood, represents the violence inherent in all life. Every living thing survives by consuming other living things. The Formless Mother simply makes this brutal truth visible, using blood magic to demonstrate that civilization is built on suffering. She's not preaching cruelty, but revealing the cruelty already present, making people acknowledge the violence they prefer to ignore. Theory 105 examines the connection between blood magic and Mohg's dynasty. Blood carries memory and lineage. By mixing blood through his rituals, Mohg creates a dynasty bound not by law or land, but by shared essence. Everyone in his dynasty is literally related through mystically mingled blood. His dynasty isn't metaphorical, but biological, a new form of kinship that transcends normal reproduction. The 106th theory suggests that the frenzied flame represents not chaos but pain. This outer god embodies suffering itself, the accumulated agony of every being that has ever hurt. Its desire to burn everything away stems from mercy. If everything is destroyed, nothing can suffer anymore. The frenzied flame's madness is actually the most compassionate response to a world built on endless cycles of pain. Our 107th theory proposes that Shabriri, the most hated man in history, who supposedly began the frenzied flame worship, wasn't evil but enlightened. He recognized that the Golden Order's promise of eternal life under divine guidance was actually eternal imprisonment. The flame offered release, an end to the cycle. His crime wasn't spreading chaos, but offering people the one thing the Order could never permit: the option to simply stop existing. Theory 108 examines the three fingers, the antithesis to the two fingers. If the two fingers represent the greater will's order, the three fingers represent rejection of that order. But unlike other outer gods that want to impose their own rules, The frenzied flame wants no rules at all. It's not about creating a new order, but ensuring no order can ever exist again. It's freedom through annihilation. The 109th theory suggests that Hieta's quest shows the seductive logic of the frenzied flame. She was blind, suffering, searching for meaning. The flame gave her sight and purpose by showing her that suffering itself is the problem. If you can't fix suffering, you can at least end it. Her embrace of the flame isn't madness, but desperate pragmatism from someone who sees no other solution to an unfixable world. Our 110th theory proposes that the Lord of Frenzied Flame ending is actually mercy. The Tarnished doesn't destroy the world out of nihilism, but compassion. They see what we see, a broken world of undead and monsters. Gods fighting endless wars, civilizations built on suffering. Burning it all away isn't cruelty but kindness. It's saying that some worlds are too broken to save, and the merciful thing is to end them, so something new might eventually begin. Theory 111 turns to the ancient dragons, who once ruled before the Erd Tree rose. These dragons wielded lightning, drawing power from storms and stone. Their ancient dragon cult persists, suggesting their rule was more benevolent than Marika's Golden Order. Dragons accepted worship but didn't demand it. They ruled through strength but allowed their subjects autonomy. Their age ended not because they were evil, but because they were too inflexible to adapt to changing reality. The 112th theory examines Dragon Lord Placidusax, who awaits his god's return outside time itself. He's not delusional but patient. Time functions differently for dragons. What seems like eons of waiting to mortals might feel like moments to him. His god might actually return eventually, or perhaps the god already returned, and Placidusax, existing outside normal time, simply hasn't experienced that return yet. Our 113th theory suggests that dragons and humans share deeper connections than commonly believed. Dragon communion allows people to gradually transform into dragons through consuming dragon hearts. But this isn't corruption. It's revealing an underlying compatibility between species. Dragons might be what humans could become if they embraced certain aspects of their nature, and humans might be what dragons could become if they chose mortality and change over eternal strength. Theory 114th proposes that Farum Azula, the crumbling city in the sky, isn't falling apart but coming together. Time flows strangely there, moving in multiple directions simultaneously. What looks like ruins might be construction, the city assembling and disassembling constantly. Malekith guards the Rune of Death there, not because it's a safe hiding place, but because Farum Azula exists partially outside time, making it the only place where Death's power can be safely contained. The 115th theory examines why Malekith, Marika's shadow, serves so faithfully despite what happened to the Rune of Death he guarded. When fragments were stolen to create the Black Knives, he failed his primary duty, yet he continues serving, racked with guilt. His loyalty isn't admirable, but pathological. He can't conceive of existence without service, even to a master who he failed, and who may have deliberately arranged that failure. Our 116th theory suggests that the beastmen of Farum Azula aren't servants of the dragons, but their priests. They maintain the dragon cult even after the dragon's power faded. Their bestial nature connects them to something primal, a time before the Erd Tree, when the world operated under different rules. They don't worship dragons out of subjugation, but reverence for a more honest age when strength and wisdom were the same thing. Theory 117th proposes that the fire giants weren't evil beings that Marika rightfully destroyed. They were guardians of the primordial flame, the fire that birthed the world. Marika's war against them was about establishing the Golden Order's supremacy by eliminating competing cosmic forces. The genocide of the fire giants was the first of many purges designed to ensure only the Greater Will's influence remained. The 118th theory examines the fell god of fire that the giants worshipped. This entity represented raw creative destruction, the fire that burns away the old to make room for the new. The Greater Will couldn't allow such a force to exist because it made the Golden Order's permanence impossible. As long as the flame burned, nothing could be eternal. Marika's extermination of the giants was really about killing change itself. Our 119th theory suggests that the last fire giant's continued existence serves a purpose beyond merely guarding the flame. He's a living reminder of what the Golden Order is built upon: genocide and theft. Every time someone sees him, they're confronted with evidence of the Order's crimes. His survival isn't Marika showing mercy, but ensuring that proof of her atrocity remains, perhaps part of her larger plan to eventually undermine the system she helped create. Theory 120 proposes that the Forge of the Giants, where we burn the Ord Tree, represents the ultimate irony. The Golden Order preserved the very flame that could destroy it, unable to fully eliminate the fire giant's power. This suggests that some forces are too fundamental to erase. Fire is transformation, and transformation cannot be permanently suppressed. The Order could only delay its own inevitable burning, not prevent it. Our 121st theory turns to the Nox, who were banished underground for the crime of attempting to create a lord to rival the Greater Will. But what if their silver tears aren't failed experiments, but successful ones? These shape-shifting mimics might be exactly what they tried to create: beings capable of becoming anything, including gods. The Nox weren't banished for failure, but for succeeding too well, creating something that threatened the cosmic order. Theory 122 examines the eternal cities, preserved perfectly beneath the earth. These aren't ruins, but functioning civilizations that chose to continue after their banishment. Being cut off from the sky and stars didn't destroy them, but freed them. Underground, away from the Golden Order's sight, they could pursue knowledge the Order forbid. Their exile was punishment, but also liberation. The 123rd theory suggests that the black moon that hung over the eternal cities before they were banished represents something the Greater Will feared. This wasn't the dark moon that Rani serves, but something older and stranger. The Nox worshipped a cosmic force that predated the current outer gods, something from before the Greater Will established its dominance. Their punishment was about suppressing dangerous knowledge. Our 124th theory proposes that the mimic tears are actually fragments of a singular god the Nox tried to create. They didn't succeed in making one coherent deity, but instead created countless pieces of divine essence, each capable of mimicking whatever it encounters. These fragments await the day when someone will finally reunite them into the original intended form. Theory 125 examines the ancestral followers who dwell in the underground regions. These people worship spirits, communing with dead ancestors for guidance. Their beliefs predate the Golden Order and might be closer to how spirituality originally worked in the world. The Order couldn't tolerate their ancestor worship because it offered an alternative to the Erdtree's cycle, proving that death and rebirth could function without cosmic interference. The 126th theory suggests that Noxtella and Nokron, the twin eternal cities, represent different approaches to the same goal. One focused on physical transformation through silver tears. The other pursued spiritual transformation through astrology and fate manipulation. Together, they formed a complete system for creating artificial gods, part science and part mysticism, a methodology that would have made the Greater Will's chosen vessels obsolete. Our 127th theory proposes that the Fingerslayer blade Rani uses to kill her. Two Fingers was created by the Nox specifically for rebellion against the Greater Will. They knew that eventually, someone would want to resist their cosmic destiny. The blade is their legacy, a tool forged from their resentment and determination, passed down through ages to be used by anyone brave or foolish enough to defy the Finger's guidance. Theory 128 examines why the Greater Will doesn't simply destroy the Eternal Cities completely. Perhaps it can't. The cities exist in a liminal space, neither fully part of the surface world nor entirely separate. Or perhaps keeping them alive serves a purpose, a constant reminder to other civilizations of what happens to those who defy cosmic authority. The cities are both punishment and warning. The 129th theory suggests that the Lands Between's geography makes no sense because it's not natural. The Eternal Cities underground, Farum Azula floating in the sky, regions that seem to overlap or exist in impossible positions. All of this points to reality being heavily manipulated. Different areas might exist in separate dimensional pockets, connected by magic or cosmic will rather than normal geography. Our 130th theory proposes that the Ainsel and Siofra rivers, which flow underground with full skies above them, aren't in the ground at all. They're in a separate dimension that happens to be accessible from below. The stars visible in these underground skies are real stars from somewhere else, possibly the homeland of the Nox, before they were banished to this intermediate realm between worlds. Theory 131 turns to the Erd Tree itself, which dominates the horizon of the Lands Between. This massive tree seems to be the source of all life, but some believe it's actually parasitic. The Erd Tree grows by absorbing the dead, pulling their souls into itself rather than allowing them to rest. What appears to be sacred recycling is actually predation, the tree feeding endlessly on the life essence of everything that dies within its influence. The 132nd theory examines the golden seeds that fall from the Erd Tree. These aren't gifts, but spores, the tree's method of spreading its influence. Each seed contains a fragment of the tree's essence, and planting them creates connections that allow the Erd Tree to extend its roots into new areas. The tree isn't generously providing resources, but systematically colonizing all available space. Our 133rd theory suggests that the minor Erd Trees scattered throughout the Lands Between are actually the remnants of the Great Tree that existed before the Erd Tree. When the Erd Tree consumed or replaced its predecessor, some of the Great Tree survived, these pale imitations that can never reach the glory of what they once were. They're not children of the Erd Tree, but ghosts of what it destroyed. Theory 134 proposes that the Erd Tree isn't actually alive, but is instead a massive magical construct created by the Greater Will. It looks like a tree, but functions more like a machine, a divine device for processing souls and maintaining the Golden Order. The distinction matters because machines can be reprogrammed or shut down, which is what Marika attempted by shattering the Elden Ring. The 135th theory examines the roots of the Erd Tree, which burrow impossibly deep. These roots don't just extract nutrients, but actively consume other sources of power. the roots have infiltrated every sacred site, every place of power, slowly draining them and converting their essence into fuel for the Order. The Erd Tree is both parasite and conqueror, spreading through the world like a cancer disguised as salvation. Our 136th theory suggests that burning the Erd Tree doesn't destroy it, but rather reveals its true nature. The golden exterior burns away to show something ancient and twisted underneath, the skeleton of what the great tree once was. The burning isn't ending the Erd Tree, but rather stripping away its disguise, showing everyone what's been hiding behind the golden facade all along. Theory 137th proposes that the thorns blocking entrance to the Erd Tree serve multiple purposes. They keep people out, yes, but they also keep something in. What we find inside the shattered Marika and broken Elden Ring needs to be contained. The thorns aren't just a barrier but a prison, and when we burn them away, we're not just accessing the tree, but releasing what it was meant to hold. The 138th theory examines the spectral light that illuminates certain areas of the lands between. This light comes from the Erd Tree, but appears in specific locations, often marking places of power or sites where the Order is particularly strong. But this light isn't neutral. It carries the greater will's presence, and standing in it means being observed by cosmic forces. The light is beautiful, but also surveilling, ensuring nothing occurs beyond the Order's awareness. Our 139th theory suggests that the Shadowlands visible in the DLC exist because they were rejected by the Erd Tree's light. These are places the Greater Will couldn't or wouldn't illuminate, regions where its influence is weak or absent. But in that absence, other powers grow strong. The Shadowlands represent what the world might become if the Erd Tree's dominance ended, both terrifying and liberating in their freedom from cosmic mandate. Theory 140 proposes that Messmer, revealed in the shadow of the Erd Tree, represents Marika's hidden shame. Another child, another demigod, kept secret and away from the light. Perhaps Messmer embodies everything Marika wanted to forget about herself, the violence and cruelty necessary to establish the Golden Order. By hiding him in shadow, she could maintain her image of golden perfection while the dark truth remained obscured. Our 141st theory turns to the Round Table Hold, that mysterious gathering place for Tarnished. This place exists outside normal space, accessible from anywhere yet located nowhere specific. It might not be a physical location at all, but rather a shared mental space, a collective hallucination maintained by Tarnished, who need somewhere to call home. When the hold burns, it's not a physical fire, but the collapse of a shared dream. Theory 142 examines the role of guidance of grace, those golden rays that point Tarnished toward their goals. But who decides where these rays point? The Greater Will supposedly guides them. But what if they're actually being manipulated by Marika's residual consciousness? She might be influencing Grace's direction, trying to guide Tarnished toward outcomes that serve her hidden agenda, even as she remains imprisoned. The 143 theory suggests that sites of grace serve as anchor points in reality. In a world where time and space are fluid, these sites provide stability, places where reality remains constant. They're not just rest stops, but foundations, and the more sites that exist, the more solid reality becomes. Destroying or deactivating sites of grace would weaken the fabric of the world itself. Our 144th theory proposes that Melina's role as the one who grants us the ability to level up makes her crucial to the Tarnished's success. But she's not simply being helpful. Every level we gain binds us more completely to the path Marika designed. We think we're growing stronger, but we're actually becoming more constrained, shaped into the precise tool needed to accomplish goals that aren't truly our own. Theory 145 examines Torrent, the spectral steed that appears at the beginning of our journey. This creature doesn't belong to us, but chooses to help us, suggesting it has its own agenda. Torrent has served others before, possibly including Miquella. The steed might be an agent working toward goals that align with, but aren't identical to our own, using the Tarnished as a vehicle to accomplish something we don't fully understand. The 146th theory suggests that the player character is actually dead and has been from the beginning. The Tarnished are defined as those who died and were resurrected. But what if that resurrection was incomplete? We might be ghosts piloting our own corpse, which would explain our ability to die repeatedly and return. Death has no meaning for us because we've already died. We're just repeatedly remembering we're supposed to be dead before forgetting again. Our 147th theory proposes that the various endings represent not different choices, but different interpretations of the same event. The Tarnished touches the Elden Ring and reshapes reality according to their understanding. But reality is complex enough that multiple interpretations can coexist. Each ending might be happening simultaneously, with different observers perceiving different outcomes based on their own perspective and beliefs. Theory 148 examines the Age of Fracture ending, where the Tarnished restores the Elden Ring without modification. This seems like returning to the status quo, but it's actually worse. The ring has been shattered and crudely repaired, meaning the Golden Order returns, but in a damaged, imperfect form. All the flaws that led to the shattering remain, guaranteeing the cycle will repeat. The fracture ending isn't restoration, but perpetuation of dysfunction. The 149th theory suggests that the Age of Order, created using Goldmask's rune, represents the worst possible outcome. Goldmask sought to perfect the Golden Order by removing the god's capacity for doubt and change. But doubt and change are essential for adaptation. His perfect order is actually perfect stagnation. A world frozen into eternal sameness, where nothing can ever improve because improvement requires questioning existing systems. Our 150th theory proposes that the Age of the Dustborn, where death is restored to the world, is more complex than it appears. Ephia creates this ending to give Godwyn and those who live in death proper rest. But restoring death means everyone can die permanently again. The Age of Immortality ends. This seems like freedom, but it also means knowledge can be lost, civilizations can fall completely, and nothing is guaranteed to endure. Death's return is both liberation and doom. Theory 151 examines the Blessing of Despair ending, where the Dung Eater's curse spreads to everyone. While this seems purely evil, there's a twisted logic to it. If everyone is cursed, then being cursed is normal. The shame and persecution that omens face would end because everyone would share their condition. The Dung Eater doesn't want to spread suffering, but to distribute it so equally that it loses its power to marginalize anyone. The 152nd theory suggests that the Lord of Frenzied Flame ending, where the Tarnished burns everything away, might trigger a complete reset. The world is destroyed, yes, but destruction precedes creation. By burning everything, the Tarnished wipes the slate clean, allowing something entirely new to emerge from the ashes. It's not the end, but the beginning of something that couldn't exist while the old world remained. Our 153rd theory proposes that the Age of Stars ending creates more problems than Ranni realizes. She removes the Elden Ring and leaves the lands between to govern itself. But the ring wasn't just a tool of control. It was also the structure holding reality together. Without it, the world might gradually fall apart, not through destruction, but through entropy. Reality slowly becoming less coherent until nothing makes sense anymore. Theory 154 examines what happens to NPCs in different endings. Do they persist? Do they remember each ending reshapes reality so fundamentally that the people we knew might cease to exist in any meaningful sense? The NPCs we befriended, helped, or killed might be erased and replaced by different versions of themselves. People with the same names but different histories shaped by the new order we imposed. The 155 theory suggests that no ending is truly final. The lands between has cycled through multiple ages already, and any ending we create will eventually fail like all those before it. The demigods, outer gods, and cosmic forces are too powerful and numerous for any single solution to last. Our ending, whatever we choose, is just another temporary stabilization before the next inevitable collapse. Our 156 theory proposes that the true ending is refusing to choose any ending at all. By not mending the ring or claiming godhood, the tarnished breaks the cycle. The world remains in chaos, yes, but that chaos is natural rather than imposed. Without an Elden Lord or New Order, the various factions and forces must negotiate and adapt organically, rather than being forced into a structure determined by divine mandate. Theory 157 examines whether the Tarnished has free will, or is merely following a script. Every action we take was predicted by Marika, guided by Grace, enabled by Melina. We think we're making choices, but perhaps we're just executing a program written before we were born. The illusion of choice might be the greatest trick the Golden Order plays, making us believe we're rebelling when we're actually fulfilling its design purpose. The 158 theory suggests that the greater will itself might not be evil, but simply alien. It imposes order because that's its nature, not out of malice, but because it literally cannot conceive of existence without structure. The Psyche, suffering it causes, is incidental to its primary function. It's not a tyrant, but a force of nature, as indifferent to our pain as gravity or time. Our 159 theory proposes that outer gods are actually humans from the future, who gain so much power they transcended time. They reach backward through history to create the conditions that led to their own existence, making themselves into their own gods. The greater will, the formless mother, all of them might be future versions of ourselves, locked in a cycle of self-creation. Theory 160 examines the possibility that the lands between is actually a prison for cosmic entities. The geography makes no sense. Time flows strangely, and powerful beings are trapped in various locations. Perhaps this entire world is a cage built by something even greater than the outer gods, designed to contain forces too dangerous to allow loose in the wider cosmos. We're not heroes, but inmates who don't realize we're imprisoned. Our 161st theory suggests that the Tarnished might be unique because we remember dying. Other Tarnished were resurrected but continued as if they never died. We're different. We remember death, and that memory changes us. It makes us less afraid, more willing to take risks, able to challenge gods because we've already experienced the worst thing that can happen and returned from it. Theory 162 proposes that the Tarnished absorbs a fragment of every major boss we defeat. This isn't just mechanical, gaining their power. We literally take pieces of their consciousness into ourselves. By the end of our journey, we're not one person, but a collection of voices, a chorus of defeated foes, whose knowledge and strength we've consumed and integrated into our being. The 163 theory examines why the tarnished can wield any weapon or master any magic. Normal people specialize, but we're generalists who can do everything. Perhaps we're not actually human, but something else. A being specifically designed or evolved to be adaptable. Our entire purpose might be to serve as a universal solvent, capable of taking any shape needed to dissolve problems that more specialized beings cannot address. Our 164th theory suggests that other tarnished, like Vike or Bernal, who came before us, weren't failures, but experiments. Each previous tarnished tested a different approach to mending the ring, gathering data about what works and what doesn't. We're not the chosen one, but the latest iteration, benefiting from all the lessons learned through their attempts and deaths. Theory 165 proposes that the merchants, those suffering outcasts buried beneath Leyndell, are actually time travelers. Their odd speech patterns and strange knowledge suggest they come from either the distant past or far future. They were imprisoned not for breaking laws, but for being in the wrong time. People who didn't belong in the current age and whose presence threatened temporal stability. The 166th theory examines the nomadic merchants and their connection to the frenzied flame. They were unjustly persecuted and buried alive, their collective suffering birthing or strengthening the flame. But their melodies and gentle nature suggest they never sought revenge. The frenzied flame might have emerged not from their hatred, but from the world's hatred of them. The accumulated cruelty they experienced crystallizing into a cosmic force of annihilation. Our 167th theory suggests that Patches, who appears across multiple From Software games, is actually a cosmic entity of some kind. His presence in every world and era suggests he exists outside normal continuity. Perhaps he's a lesser outer god who takes mortal form to observe and occasionally interfere in events. His betrayals aren't random but tests, challenges meant to strengthen those who survive them. Theory 168 proposes that Bok the Seamster represents the best and worst of the lands between. He's kind, talented, and wants only to serve. But his desire to become human, to be beautiful according to others' standards, leads to tragedy. He's perfect as he is, but the world's cruelty makes him hate himself. His story shows how even the gentlest souls are poisoned by a society built on hierarchies and conditional worth. The 169 theory examines Alexander, the warrior Jar, and the horrifying truth about his kind. Warrior jars are filled with corpses and refuse. Warriors who desire to continue fighting even after death. Alexander doesn't know he's a mass grave. Or perhaps he does and has made peace with it. He's a walking memorial, honoring the fallen by literally carrying them into new battles, giving them the eternal warfare they desired. Our 170th theory suggests that Kenneth Haight's quest to restore proper lineage to Limgrave reveals the Order's fundamental flaw. Noble blood, proper succession, divine right. All of these are fiction. Kenneth clings to meaningless traditions because they give him purpose and identity. Without the structure of nobility, he's nothing, which is why he desperately tries to restore it, even as everything crumbles around him. Theory 171 proposes that Nephili Lu's connection to Huaralu isn't just in name, but in actual lineage. She might be a direct descendant of Godfrey, making her one of the few tarnished with true royal blood. Her potential as ruler of Limgrave isn't because Gideon adopts her, but because rulership is her birthright, inherited from the first Elden Lord. The 172 theory examines Gideon Ofner, the all-knowing, whose vast knowledge becomes his curse. By the end, he knows too much. He's seen the truth of the gods and the futility of the Tarnished's quest. His attempt to stop us isn't villainy but pessimistic compassion. He's trying to spare us from the burden of knowledge he carries, the understanding that whatever we do will ultimately fail. Our 173rd theory suggests that Tanith's devotion to Rykard goes beyond romantic love. She sees in his transformation something she desires for herself. By feeding him, she participates in his divine consumption, slowly becoming part of him. When we kill Rykard, she mourns, but also continues his work, consuming his flesh to carry on his legacy. She doesn't serve the god-devouring serpent. She's becoming it. Theory 174 proposes that the various spirit summons we collect aren't actually summoning the dead, but pulling alternate versions of those beings from parallel timelines. Each summon represents a timeline where that creature or person made different choices or met different fates. By summoning them, we briefly connect our reality with theirs, borrowing their strength before they return to their own worlds. The 175 theory examines the rebirth mechanic offered by Renala. She doesn't actually change who you are, but rather lets you forget who you were and imagine yourself as someone else. The rebirth is psychological, not physical. The egg she uses contains not magical power, but concentrated delusion, allowing you to rewrite your own history and become a new person by simply believing hard enough that you already are. Our 176th theory suggests that the map fragments we collect aren't just convenient gameplay items, but actual artifacts. Someone spent time carefully charting the lands between, and we're following in their footsteps. That cartographer might have been another Tarnished who came before us, mapping the world before dying. We're completing their work, filling in the gaps they never got to explore. Theory 177 proposes that the various painting worlds accessible through paintings aren't separate dimensions, but memories. Each painting captures a moment in time, preserving it perfectly. When we enter paintings, we're experiencing someone's preserved memory, walking through events that have already happened. The inhabitants aren't really alive, but echoes, recordings playing on eternal loop. The 178th theory examines why certain items glow with light when we're near them. This isn't game convenience, but suggests we have an innate ability to sense important objects. Perhaps grace doesn't just guide us toward goals, but also highlights things we'll need. Every glowing item is part of Marika's plan, carefully placed or enchanted to draw our attention, ensuring we gather exactly the tools required for our destined purpose. Our 179th theory suggests that the game's difficulty isn't just design choice but lore relevant. The lands between are genuinely dangerous, and most Tarnished die repeatedly before achieving anything. Our experience of constant death and resurrection is actually canonical. We're not a chosen one who succeeds easily, but a stubborn one who refuses to stay dead long enough for failure to become permanent. Theory 180, our final theory, proposes the most unsettling possibility of all nothing in Elden Ring is real. The entire story, all the characters, every struggle and triumph, exist only in the moment we experience them. When we turn off the game, that world ceases to exist. When we return, it reconstructs itself, pretending it was always there. We're not exploring the lands between, but creating them through observation. And the moment we stop paying attention, everything dissolves back into potential, waiting for someone to believe in it again. And so our tale comes to a close. Thank you for journeying with me tonight, Cozy Nights. If this story helped you rest, consider leaving a like. It helps other weary travelers find their way to our fireside. And remember, there are many more tales waiting for you here by the fire. Until next time, sleep peacefully and have a cozy night.